know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
Is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. This is Dan Wootton Tonight with me, Patrick Christys. Now, Rishi Sunak finally gets tough on immigration as he pledges to stop the small boats without leaving the ECHR. But will the PM's plan finally ease the pain on ordinary, hard-working Brits like this man?
Our doctors and the people that work down at the local surgery are concerned about this sudden influx. Our infrastructure can't take it.
I will explore the ongoing scandal of migrant hotels in my digest next before we cross live to a protest outside one such hotel in Kegworth, Leicestershire, to get the view of distressed locals there. Then I will get the view of my superstar panel, and tonight, I'm very pleased to say, that I am joined by the wonderful Carol Malone, Benjamin Butterworth and Belinda DeLucy. Cracking waves, people, cracking waves. I can tell you've been practising. Then in the media buzz, I will ask if the government is right to say that it's a privilege, not a human right, to be a British citizen. Let me know your thoughts too. As Labour is accused of trying to hide details of Sue Gray's appointment, Slippery Starmer is struggling to answer this simple question.
Did you first approach Sue Gray to be your Chief of Staff?
Nick, I know her personally. I met her when I was Director of Public Prosecution.
I will try again, but you can't tell me when you first approached her.
I've been looking for a Chief of Staff for...
Yeah, find out how many more times he dodged that question when we debate whether Labour are guilty of a cover-up over Sue Gray. Elsewhere on the show, Prince Harry has been slammed for glorifying marijuana use in his latest car crash interview. But will the Duke of Dope's reckless words do real harm to society? Reality TV star Kerry Katona, who's had her own highly publicised battle with drugs, joins me live to give her unmissable take on the story that's got the world talking. Plus, US comedian Chris Rock has become the latest Hollywood celebrity to mock the Sussexes.
I wanted to know how brown the baby's gonna be. I'm like, that's not racist. Because even black people want to know.
Yes, so have Harry and Meghan lost all credibility? Angela Levin and Nina Mishkov duke it out on that in the clash very, very soon, but also coming up after the shocking revelation that Matt Hancock wanted to use new COVID variants to frighten the public into submission. Should there be a reckoning for the government's use of psychological warfare. Who better than Neil Oliver to join me live on that this hour? And, of course, a first look at tomorrow's front pages and a new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass coming up too. This is Dan Wootton tonight with me, Patrick Christie's. Let's go. My digest is coming up, but first, of course, it's time for the news with the wonderful Bolly Middlehurst.
Patrick, thank you, and good evening to you. Our top story on GB News tonight. The Metropolitan Police has apologised for not arresting former officer Wayne Couzens before he murdered Sarah Everard. Couzens has been sentenced to a further 19 months in prison today after pleading guilty to 3 charges of indecent exposure. The crimes happened in the months before he kidnapped, raped and killed Miss Everard in 2021. The 50-year-old is already serving a whole life sentence. The force said his behaviour should make everyone in policing hang their heads in shame. Also in the news today, charities are warning thousands of asylum seekers will be left permanently in limbo under new government plans to tackle illegal migration. The new laws would ban those crossing the Channel in small boats from claiming asylum and from returning to the UK. The government has promised to provide more safe routes. That as 3,000 people have already made the journey so far this year. That's nearly double the year before. The Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, says the government isn't doing enough.
We need action to stop the dangerous boat crossings that are putting lives at risk and also undermining border security. That's why we've called for a new cross-border police unit to go after the criminal gangs that are really driving this, as well as a new agreement with France and an overhaul of the asylum system to end hotel use.
Police in South Wales investigating a fatal car crash at the weekend have referred themselves to the Independent Office for Police Conduct. 3 young people were killed and 2 more critically injured. But the car wasn't found until 2 days after the group went missing. That's despite being metres off a main road. Eve Smith and Darcy Ross from Newport and Raphael Jean from Cardiff died in the accident, while Sophie Rousson and Shane McLaughlin remain in a critical condition. A friend criticised the force for not acting quickly enough. Firefighters have voted overwhelmingly to accept a new pay offer, ending the prospect of strike action. The deal is for a 7% pay increase, backdated to July last year, plus an additional 5% from July. 96% of Fire Brigade Union members accepted the offer, but General Secretary Matt Rack admitted it was another real terms pay cut. And lastly, a yellow weather warning for snow and ice is in place across large parts of the UK tonight. The Met Office has issued alerts for much of the south, the Midlands, South Wales and Northern Ireland from 9 tonight until 10 in the morning. One is already in place in northern and eastern Scotland and northeast England. And Tuesday, tomorrow, expected to be the coldest night of the year. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Dan Wootton tonight has Patrick Christie's hosting.
Good evening, everybody. Now, protesting about a migrant hotel in your town or village does not make you far right. There is nothing extreme right-wing about caring about workers' rights. One of the most underreported scandals of this whole migrant hotel fiasco is how many workers have lost their jobs in order to accommodate these people. These hotels have ordinary staff, they have restaurants, they have leisure clubs. The people who work there, no doubt to support their own families, get called into a meeting and told that they're losing their jobs with just a few days' notice. And I spoke to a chap called Lee earlier who was protesting about an asylum seeker hotel in his town of Kegworth, and he's worried about how many people have just been rendered unemployed.
Employees that were there. I mean, there's Marco Pierre White's. That was there. There was the escape rooms that used to operate from there. And it's just to turn around and tell all those people that, you know, I'm sorry, but come Friday, you're out of work.
Well, that doesn't sound particularly far right to me. And if we apply what Lee has just said right across the country, how many thousands of people have been sacked to accommodate people who've just come across the channel? You know what else isn't far right? Worrying about being able to see your GP. I mean, good grief, if worrying about being able to see a doctor makes you far right, then I think we're all far right, aren't we? In Kegworth, there were a couple of GP surgeries, and Lee told me that one unfortunately burnt down, apparently, which means that there's now only one. So, if several hundred people arrive overnight, then it is reasonable to be concerned that that might have an impact on your local healthcare. And Lee had this to say.
Our doctors and the people that work down at the local surgery are concerned about this sudden influx. Our infrastructure can't take it.
OK, well, you know what else isn't far right? Being a bit angry when someone doesn't tell you the truth or you feel like you've been misled. Like when hundreds of people are suddenly plonked in your local area without any warning, and then you're told that they're all genuine asylum seekers from Afghanistan, which I think a lot of people are very sympathetic towards, by the way, because Afghanistan is completely under Taliban control, only for you to then find out that there are also people, allegedly, from places like Egypt and a whole load of other possibly safe countries. Here's Lee again.
Nobody knows where they've come from. We're told in one breath that they're from Afghanistan, and then we're told they're from Somalia, we're told from Egypt. We just don't know. I'd like to tell those people that are saying that we're far right and we're racist. We're not. We're just a small, concerned community.
Again, I think that's fair enough, isn't it? It's not far right. And you know what else isn't far right? Caring about basic public safety. It's not far right to be concerned that adding hundreds of young single men of mysterious backgrounds to a town with a population of just a few thousand might present some risks. Let's bring Lee back on.
It's a big, frightening thing for pensioners and school children and teenagers. The whole village is just in a state of shock over this.
It also isn't far right to just come out and say, I like the town that I live in just the way it is. That's why I live here. And I think I would like living here less if several hundred asylum seekers moved in overnight. Now, that's not racist. That's reasonable for all of the reasons I've just outlined above. And it was easy to hide the extent of the migrant hotel crisis when they were putting them all in inner-city hotels. Those areas are densely populated, multicultural, etc. And, frankly, it just blends in a lot of the time. But because of the sheer scale of the problem, they're now putting a lot of these people in rural areas, and more people are having to ask themselves whether or not they want to have this in their lives. And more people are saying no, again, for the completely reasonable points like public safety, local economy, and burden on public services. But to keep these people quiet, the old Refugees Welcome Brigade called totally ordinary, hard-working people far right, when they're nothing of the sort. That pro-channel migrant lobby are not actually, in my view, pro-asylum seeker. They are simply silence seekers. They want to keep you quiet in case you expose the true realities of what mass illegal immigration can look like. Well, I'm going to get my panel's reaction in a moment, but first we are crossing live to our GB News East Midlands reporter Will Hollis, who is currently at a protest involving angry residents in Kegworth, Leicestershire, against the planned housing of around 250 migrants at a local hotel. And I believe we can bring Will up now. I think we can, actually. So, Will, I believe, who is outside this particular hotel. If not, we will go to the panel in just a second. But there we go. I think Will might be there. Yes, he is. Good stuff. Just about in time. Now, Will, what's the mood like where you are? And who have you got with you?
Hiya, Patrick. Yeah, well, we've been bringing it all day on GB News. The reaction from local people after they found out about a week ago that 250 or so asylum seekers would be moving into the local hotel. What's been happening today at this second protest, the first one was last week, is that there's been a parish council meeting where they're going to be talking about it. They have been talking about it for the last 2 hours or so. And I've managed to catch one of the people that's come out of that meeting and has been listening to what local parish councillors have had to say. AD, you're from Kegworth and you've been reacting to the news that 250 or so asylum seekers are going to be moving here. Just describe for me, what is the objection from you and some people in this community?
I think contrary to what the parish council tonight have quoted as saying Kegworth is ready for 250 asylum seekers, we're not. had there been discussion about it beforehand, information about it beforehand, a little bit of a heads up, you know, we know what's going on in the future possibly, and give people a choice, an option, concerned parents, you know, families.
You've just said there, concerned parents and families. Absolutely. One of the things that Patrick's talking about is if people like you that are at these protests that have a problem with hotels and asylum seeker hotels, if they are far right, are you far right?
Absolutely not. No, I'm a family man. I have a good job. I'm not remotely far right, and neither are the rest of the village. We are concerned parents, we're villagers. The majority of us see each other, you know, on a regular basis. We just want to have our voice heard.
Edie, thank you so much for staying around in the cold. Patrick, of course, this is only a parish council. It's a very small council, and they do have very little powers. But I think what the power is tonight from the people here in Kegworth is that they've made their voices heard.
Yeah, look, and Will, thank you very much to Adi, but also you as well, Will, for hanging around there for us and bringing us that story all day. It is much appreciated. That was our East Midlands reporter, Will Hollis, doing some stellar work there. Well, look, to respond to all of this now is finally my superstar panel. You saw them waving like maniacs earlier. You're going to get a closer look at them now. Daily Express columnist Carol Malone. We've got senior reporter for the I newspaper, Benjamin Butterworth, and former MEP and political commentator Belinda DeLucy. I'll start with you. Well, look, I'm very keen to drill down onto this annoying trope that anyone, like normal people we've just seen there, like AD, being branded as far right for having concerns about what's going on in the local area. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, everything you said in the Digest is spot on. Do you remember a few weeks ago when there was a riot in Liverpool?
Yes.
And the people came out because a girl had been approached by migrants and she was frightened. And there was almost a riot in the streets there. And I remember that those people in the streets being branded as being far right. And I was actually on a show here and I said to your reporter, where's your evidence that these people are far right? Because what I can see, they're just concerned parents. And it is true. You know, we know even before this has happened, we know that in previous months we've had groups of lone economic...
I'll tell you what, I'm just being told there's a slight issue with your mic, so I'm going to come back to you, which gives me the perfect opportunity to bring in Benjamin Butterworth, who I can tell is itching to get involved. Go on. How much do you hate what I've said?
Well, finally, Carol Malone's been silenced.
I'm coming back.
She's trying to take my shot now.
No, I'm actually getting my microphone off.
When it comes to this, clearly two things can be true and accurate at the same time. It is entirely possible that if you live in a village like Kegworth, the one we just saw, that 250 strangers coming in is obviously going to be unnerving and there are going to be questions, and that is understandable, and maybe it should have been explained better to them. But that doesn't mean that there is not a significant and dangerous far-right element in these protests.
OK.
And we know that as a matter of fact, because there was a big report in the Times 2 Saturdays ago about the fact that on social media, far-right, hard-right, racist groups are organising and sending busloads of people to these places to protest, and there is a massive section of racism in opposing these refugee hotels.
Belinda.
Yeah, well, the Lib left have completely gutted the term far right. It is totally meaningless now. It's lost all potency, lost all gravitas. They have used it to smear absolutely everyone who diverges from their narrow ideology. And it's also incredibly dangerous, demonising people who have concerns about girls' safety. We saw what it did with the grooming gang scandal, where people were silenced over that. We're seeing what it's doing with blasphemy laws that's happening in our country now. And we're seeing what it's doing when you have hundreds of undocumented men, and of course they're of the age where they will be seeking partners and seeking that kind of, I don't know how to put it, but that relationship with girls.
There'll be virulent young men.
And they're from socially conservative backgrounds that view women very differently, unchaperoned women as very differently from their cultures. And it is unfair to expect communities to put themselves at risk with hundreds of young men. It'd be very different if it was women and children, and very different if they were documented, but they're not.
But I'll come back to you. But now, Carol, Benjamin said something there about far-right protesters being bussed in. I could see that was making you quite...
Well, it does make me cross, because what that does... So you have 20 protesters on a bus, but then you have hundreds of locals saying they don't want them here. You can't blame locals for that. They're not the hard right people. The people on the bus are the hard right, and they weren't asked to be there. But we do know, we have evidence that in lots of communities in this country, groups of men are roaming the streets at night time, terrorising lone women, because, as Belinda says, they come from countries where women aren't respected. And that is a source of worry.
Do you think that having an asylum seeker hotel in your area would actually enhance that area?
Well, I live in London, so I think, as your own monologue said, you wouldn't...
OK,
it would be saturated. But I grew up in a village, right? Yeah. And so, you know, I get probably a similar size to that one. But yeah, of course it's going to be surprising. But look, the truth is that you have to put these people somewhere while they're being dealt with.
They don't have to be in hotels.
Actually, to argue about the hotels and where the hotels are is arguing about the result of the problem, not the core. And the core of the problem is that the government don't hire enough people to process these applications, and they're not enforcing the laws fast enough.
I want to know why they feel the need to...
But can I just say... Sorry, can I just say... You know, all those arguments about Extinction Rebellion who sit in the road with a small protest in front of a Range Rover... And you oppose that... I haven't finished the sentence.
Stupid. Well, we know what you're going to say.
You get livid about that, and yet you have people throwing bricks through hotels, and you defend that.
Because Extinction Rebellion bring the capital to a halt.
Yeah, but these protesters throwing bricks through hotel windows in some cases.
Right, Belinda, very quickly now, why do you think that the Home Office or whoever feels the need to be misleading about this and say, oh, they are all genuine asylum seekers from Afghanistan, and it takes 30 seconds for a reporter to stand outside a hotel and realise that's just not true?
How on earth do they know they're genuine? They let almost everyone through the asylum process, whether they're genuine or not now. They let 53% of all Albanians through as asylum seekers who clearly aren't. So that's not true. And secondly, I think they are trying to cover their own tracks. Their poorly managed asylum system, so open to abuse, but they are putting the public safety at risk.
But Benjamin did make a good point, which was that actually there is a broken system at play here. And that's something we're going to be talking about a bit later on, because tomorrow Rishi Sunak is supposed to make some big, bold statement about how he's going to once and for all solve the Channel migrant crisis, and with it, solve a lot of illegal immigration from other routes as well. But he's also going to do it without really taking back control of our own laws. So, OK, go figure. Up next, Lawrence Fox. Well, he's still to come, actually. The man himself, Lawrence Fox. And I will ask him if young British school kids are being put at risk by lessons about rough sex. You couldn't make this up. But up next in The Clash, I've got royal biographer Angela Levin, and she's going to go head-to-head. That's going to kick off. You thought that kicked off? Wait for this. With Nina Mishkov on whether Harry and Meghan have now lost all credibility. They're taking the mick out of Meghan. You hate to see it. Let us know what you think as well. Email us, dan@gbnews.uk. Tweet us using the handle @gbnews. There's also a poll up there which you can vote in right now. Don't go anywhere.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit off.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
It's time now for The Clash. OK, so the Duke and Duchess of Woke, Harry and Meghan, are once again making headlines for all the wrong reasons. In a new Netflix special released yesterday, US comedian Chris Rock, whom you may remember as the target of Will Smith's infamous Oscars slap, hilariously went after the Montecito moaners for their unsubstantiated racism claims in the infamous Oprah Winfrey interview. Watch this.
She went through was not racism. It was just some in-law. Because she's complaining. I'm like, what the is she talking about? Oprah, they're so racist. They wanted to know how brown the baby was going to be. They're so racist. They wanted to know how brown the baby's going to be. I'm like, that's not racist. Because even black people want to know how brown the baby gonna be.
Right, well, I love Chris Rock. That jive is the latest evidence that Harry and Meghan have fallen out of favour both here in the UK and in the US. After only last month, the pair were seemingly snubbed from Oprah's belated birthday celebration. Now, elsewhere, Harry has also received a very strong backlash for promoting the regular use of marijuana consumption. So, with all of that in mind, have the Sussexes lost all credibility? As always, I want to get your thoughts, so email dan@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. There's also a poll running there. Make sure you take part in that because I'll be bringing you the results in just a matter of moments. But first, to help you make up your mind, I'm joined by Prince Harry's biographer. It's Angela Levin and the author and journalist Nina Mishkov as well. OK, Nina, I will start with you. You're in shot. We don't have to move cameras. So, have Harry and Meghan lost all credibility?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Chris Rock makes a couple of jokes which aren't
Strictly correct.
Oh.
In that Oprah interview, they didn't claim that the royal family were racist. And in fact, in later footage, they've said it was unconscious bias. So they've never said it was racist.
Are we splitting hairs here?
No, we're not splitting hairs because it makes a huge difference. You don't call them racist. You say later it's unconscious bias.
Unfortunately, though, as a result of what they said, there was a big, quotes, royal racism row. So what they said did lead to... Go on.
Yeah, later in the interview, though, Meghan said that she knew that Camilla had a difficult time when she joined the royal family. She knew that Catherine had a difficult time, but neither of them had as difficult a time as she had because of the racism. That word is in.
That word is in. But she was talking about the racism of the press. She was talking about the racism of the press when there was that Straight Outta Compton thing. There was all of that. She didn't actually say racism in relation to the royal family.
How do you know?
The press is... She didn't say it on that documentary. She did. She did not. She said racism. Honestly, this is ridiculous. The trouble is, Angela, you are one of the mouthpieces that Harry has talked about.
Well, hang on a minute. Are you calling her racist?
No, I'm not calling her racist at all. Of course I'm not calling you racist, Angela. I'm saying that Harry has made it clear that we've always thought the royal family never complain, never explain. But the way they do it is through various journalists. And you're one of those journalists.
No, I'm not.
Oh, come on.
Absolutely not.
So you have no contacts with the royals?
I don't have any contact with them when I'm writing a book on the biography.
Oh, but you're not writing.
But I did with Camilla.
Where do you get your
Well, I'm
sources
not going to tell you that.
Well, so you have contacts who have royal connections.
We are veering slightly off. We are veering slightly off. Andrew, I'll bring you in. Now, from where I'm sitting, it would appear clearly that Harry and Meghan are not exactly particularly popular with the royal family. They are, as the polls will tell you, not massively popular with the British public. They are not massively popular with the American public. South Park are taking the mickey out of them. Comedians are taking the mickey out of them. They're not being invited to Oprah's birthday bash. Is it fair to say that, frankly, they've screwed it all up?
Yes, I think they have. And they could have been extremely helpful. They could have done great things when they were in the royal family.
But the royal family pushed them out.
Hang on. The Queen liked them, Prince Charles liked them, then Prince Charles, and Camilla liked them. They thought she was really going to be a breath of fresh air, and they tried very hard to make life easier for her. The fact that she didn't like it, that was unfortunate. But they could have gone to countries to actually do charity. What do? They don't. They moan and groan.
This is what, before
yes,
I go
I'm
see
sure
it, is it terminal now? Because can they actually resurrect themselves in the views of anyone?
Yes, everything's gone downhill. It's like as if they've been sitting in a sieve and everything that people thought was very important about them has gone through, because they are professional moaners and they're actually not helping other people.
They're not moaning. They are not moaning. Harry has said in his most recent thing...
Say that to me one more time, that Harry is not moaning.
Harry has said he does not feel himself to be a victim. All he has done has been initially to defend himself and his wife because of the attacks of the British press. The palace, via people who portray what they want to have said, have constantly drip of poison from the moment.
Can I just say, Nina, there's one element to that. There's one element, respectfully, Nina, there's one thing that I think does undermine what you've said there, which is Harry and Meghan have had an unfiltered opportunity through Netflix, through his own book and through the Oprah interview to have completely their side of the story put across. And that, actually, are the things that have made them the most unpopular. So they have done it to themselves.
But how can you have somebody, a grown man, how can you have someone who's a grown man who goes on television and says how helpful drugs have been to him? Now, anybody who actually supports him might think if he's doing it, I might do it.
He's talking about a psychotherapist.
Go on, Nina, go on.
He's talking about his psychological experiences, and he's perfectly entitled to say that. He's talking... Yes, he is. He's entitled to say what he thinks. But he can say what he likes. He can absolutely say what he likes. It is his experience. He's talking about... In a controlled situation, those drugs helped.
But he does know that a lot of his audience, a lot of the people who do apparently still like him, are the kind of younger, maybe more woke brigade. You could argue the more susceptible people to recreational drug use, and that can cost lives.
Yes, exactly. But also, when you're grown up, he's 38 now, you have a responsibility as an adult to be careful about what you say. He comes from the most privileged background, and he's being so rude about people. He's crushing into their
Rude about who?
Yes, he's been rude about his brother. I don't think we need to know that his brother was circumcised. Let me just finish.
Let me just finish.
You don't think it's rude?
That's a fact. No.
Well, just sorry, did you say about what was it about?
Circumcised.
Right.
I don't think that's a necessary part of his own
He's allowed to talk about his own experiences, his life,
it's not
his
an
family,
experience. That's just digging into someone's privacy.
Own story. Of those 400 pages, which are a fascinating read, beautifully written, and...
Well, he didn't write them.
I know he didn't. He's got a brilliant ghostwriter, the ghostwriter who wrote Andrea Gassis. We all know that. But his memories and his thoughts make it a fascinating read. And, the ridiculous thing is, they were pushed out by the royal family because
No,
they were too popular. They were more popular than Charles, more popular than Wills and Kate. And for the machinery of majesty to go on, they need to be pushed aside.
Okay.
And they were.
What do you... Just time for one final round on this big non-royal tour that we're doing at the minute. Angela, what do you make of the suggestion that they are not going to be keeping Frogmore Cottage because William, our future king, supposedly doesn't want Harry anywhere near the royal circle there?
Absolutely.
But because he thinks he's a risk and because he doesn't want him around the kids.
Yeah, well, I think that's right. Because
around kids?
Hang on a minute. Let me
doesn't want the influence.
Let me
This is all Can I ask?
No,
about,
you can't.
No, I can ask. I want to know why he's saying. Why are you implying children?
Reportedly, because he doesn't want the influence. This is just a report.
What sort of influence is that? That's a terrible implication. Nobody has mentioned that about children. How could Prince Harry be a bad influence?
The influence would be, and this is again just reportedly, the influence would just be in terms of what he's been talking about in the press, whether or not it's a drug use,
Can I have a go?
Yes.
Yeah, two things. He said in an interview just before his book came out that he wanted to fix the royal family. He knew best how to get it to run because they think it's a very bad thing. The other thing is he wants to bring up William's children because he doesn't want them to end up like him. This is what he said. Now, I think that's appalling. If someone wanted to do that about my children, I wouldn't let them anywhere near it because children can be very interested in what he says and they can turn their way.
You're turning him into some kind of person who is dangerous around children.
I think he is dangerous.
That's an outrageous thing to say.
No, it isn't.
The trouble with you, Angela, is that the royal family to you is the golden goose, and you are not going to kill the golden goose, i.e. the royal family. So you want them to keep on laying.
Well, you don't know me. This is the first time you've ever met me.
What a point to end things, ladies.
When Angela wrote her book.
I tell you what, I didn't sign up to get in the middle of this. Right, look, both of you know, thank you very much. No, but that's what it's all about, OK? Strong views either side. Much appreciated. It's Prince Harry's biographer, Angela Levin, and the author and journalist Nina Mishkov, who I think it's fair to say are never going to agree on this. So, who do you agree with, though? As Chris Rock becomes the latest Hollywood celebrity to mock the Sussexes, have Harry and Meghan lost all credibility? And Wardy on Twitter says, totally lost credibility. It's about time the Sussexes just started doing this privacy thing they've apparently long craved. John on Twitter says, of course they have credibility. They have credibility. OK, fair enough. The media has demonised Harry and Meghan. There you go. We've got a fan of Nina in. We've got a fan of Nina in. Demonised Harry and Meghan, and it's very unfair. Michael on Twitter says, you can't lose what you never had. They never had credibility in the first place. And your verdict is now in. Sorry, Nina. 94% of you agree that the Sussexes have lost their credibility, while 6% of you say they haven't. Right, OK, well, we're off to an absolute flyer here, ladies and gents, aren't we? Coming up, Neil Oliver responds to the shocking revelation that Matt Hancock wanted to deploy a new variant to frighten the British public into pandemic submission. But first, as MPs demand an urgent inquiry into sex education, with prepubescent pupils secretly being taught about rough sex and 100 genders, are woke teachers an actual threat to our kids? Lawrence Fox has his say right after the break.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, I regret to inform you that it is kicked off outside big time after that clash, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, moving on. It's still going on. Neil Oliver on the latest shocking revelations from Hancock's lockdown files coming up. But it's time now for the Fox Report with Lawrence Fox. And MPs have raised the alarm about the explicit and inappropriate ideology that UK children are being taught in sex education classes. So, according to a disturbing dossier compiled by Tory MP Miriam Kate, prepubescent kids are secretly being asked by adults, how they feel about oral, anal and rough sex, as well as being taught that there's 100 genders. Now, Kate is leading a group of MPs calling for an urgent inquiry into sex education in schools. Lawrence joins me now. Thank you very much. And Lawrence, this, to be honest with you, makes me feel a bit sick, actually. These woke ideologues infiltrating our schools, I'm starting to wonder, well, I've been wondering for a while, are they actually a danger to our kids?
Yeah, they are. Oh my lord, PSHE and RSE, God, they're hard to get out, aren't they, those acronyms? They all need to be banned in schools. It's disgusting ideological training of children in a horrible and vile way. Who wants their kids taught about that stuff? I don't. You know, I want to go back to a world where we say to our children, don't get in a car with a stranger.
And, I mean, look, what is the actual problem, OK, with I can't believe I'm asking this, Lawrence. What is the problem with prepubescent kids being taught about oral, anal and rough sex in schools by a teacher?
Do you remember your granny telling you that you were lucky to be a child because you were still innocent? Do you remember that? Back in the day, and they said, oh, you're an innocent child. There's no whole point to it. Childhood is about innocence. It's about not knowing. It's about being guided by parents, not guided by a bunch of ideologues in the way that these... I don't particularly blame the teachers. I blame the third sector parties who... The teachers are too lazy. At the end of the day, often RSE lessons and PSHE lessons are not taught by specific professionals. They're just, someone Googles it and up comes a third party thing, Stonewall or whatever, and they then start teaching, whatever it is. We need to get rid of it. Black History Month, LGBTQ, all this stuff. Get it out of schools. I don't want it in schools. I don't want my child learning this stuff. Teach them how to read and write.
Arguably, the thing more disturbing than the subject matter itself is the fact that the one who's teaching it to them is Sandra from the geography department and not like a doctor or someone who's qualified in it. No disrespect, I'm sure Sandra's a great geography teacher, but I wouldn't really want her to tell my child with a penis that penis means nothing, you know? And I think that's quite an issue for a lot of people. But you mentioned the ideology there. Is it a political ideology or is it actually more of a fear? A fear of, if I don't teach this particular bunch of prepubescent children about trans, then I am transphobic?
I think we've all stumbled through our lives sexually, haven't we? At a certain age, we all become aware of ourselves. All right, Patrick, calm down. We've all we've all stumbled through our lives in a sexual way. We don't need 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds to talk about this stuff. It's just, you know, it's like the problem with the hard left and the sort of nihilistic hard left is they're so obsessed with sex in the same way that the more hard right are obsessed with sex, and they're sort of, you know, it's the same thing. But ultimately, it's not the teacher's fault. It's about, we've got to, as a country, turn around and go, should there be a class devoted in schools to the political indoctrination of children? And my answer to that would be no.
But why do you think that there is a crossover between politics and political indoctrination and very graphic early years sexual education?
Because it's nihilism. It's pure nihilism. It's got nothing to do with education. It's about going, you know, these people live in a world where there is nothing beyond. So all they want to do is sexualize children. And it's like, don't do that to my kids. And also, you know, don't teach them about consent. Let an adult teach them. Let a family teach them about consent. The state should have no part in teaching a child about anything.
Well, the law says that those children can't consent at that particular age anyway, which is why crimes exist, like paedophilia, etc. So why necessarily would we be teaching those kids of that particular age about very graphic levels of consent? And I think you're right in the sense that, frankly, it does over-sexualise people who don't necessarily need that in their lives. That phrase, let kids be kids, I think is a good one there. I think I've just got time to squeeze another little subject in with you, Lawrence, if that's all right, and I want to do this, which is a 14-year-old schoolboy with autism in Wakefield being forced now to flee his home. And this is the new line. People who were watching this show last week will have seen me cover this story. He's the lad who brought a Quran into school. The Quran got dropped or scuffed or whatever, right? Anyway, the latest line is that he's actually had to flee home. So Ella Braverman gave a timely reminder this weekend, I think, that Britain is not an extreme theocratic state where blasphemy laws exist. And I mean, yet again, we're seeing this, Lawrence, aren't we? What do you make? What's your reaction to the idea of this 14-year-old autistic boy having to actually flee his home?
Britain is a secular liberal democracy, which means that you have to tolerate all religions and none. And therefore, the very nature of the idea that all religions are created equal, but some are more equal than others, is totally antithetical to the nature of what Great Britain is. And therefore, I'm really sorry, but if you're offended by a Quran getting scuffed, go somewhere where they don't care. Because where they care, I couldn't give them monkeys. If you don't like it, leave. That's it for me. We do not have a link between church and state in this country. The church and the state is deliberately separated and have been for several hundred years, and it should remain that way. So if you've got a problem with it, if you don't like your Quran getting scuffed and you're going to send Batley and Spen teachers into hiding now for over 2 years without any support from the government by a baying mob of Islamists, then get in a car, drive down to Dover, get on a boat and go in the other direction.
Lawrence, thank you very much. That was, of course, Lawrence Fox, and that was the Fox Report. Now, we've spoken a lot on this show already, haven't we, about people burying their heads in the sand when it comes to burying their heads in the sand about the issues in rural, small villages when it comes to asylum seeker hotels. People burying themselves in their hand about the likes of Harry and Meghan waxing lyrical about drug use and whatever else. People burying their heads in the sand about very graphic sexual stuff being taught to prepubescent kids, and, of course, about issues like what Lawrence Fox was saying there when it comes to freedoms. Coming up, though, amid claims that Rishi Sunak's bold plan to stop the boats are unworkable, should Britain prioritise the safety of our borders over international law? Basically, should we break international law? My superstar panel tackle this and the first of tomorrow's front pages just after 10. But first, following confirmation that Matt Hancock was trying to scare citizens into compliance during the pandemic, did the government's messaging represent psychological warfare. GB News' very own Neil Oliver is very live in a matter of moments.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pearce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Neil Oliver is tonight's Outsider. Now, shameful revelations from the Telegraph's lockdown files continue to shock citizens across the nation, with disgraced Health Secretary Matt Hancock's integrity left in tatters. WhatsApp messages published over the weekend prove how the former minister planned to scare the British public into complying with his constantly changing lockdown rules, with Hancock having told his media advisor, Damon Poole, he wanted to deploy a new variant of the virus that would frighten the pants off the public, just ahead of Christmas 2020. Happy Christmas, Matt. OK, all right. Neil, it looks like the conspiracy crackpots have actually been proven right, does it? Do you feel that brave anti-lockdown campaigners like yourself have been vindicated by this apparent example of psychological warfare being used against the British public?
Well, yes, but I didn't need any so-called revelations in the Telegraph to tell me that we were right about that. It's as much has been apparent for the best part of a couple of years. First of all, Patrick, where is the outrage? Frankly, where are the howls of outrage about what's been done to the people of this country by their elected politician? Instead, there's a public indifference, it would appear, in response to learning that MPs, knowing that people were not frightened because there was nothing to be frightened of at the level that they were describing, should therefore have the pants scared off them by lies and propaganda. Where is the outrage? You know, to make them do what the politicians wanted, lies and propaganda were deployed and up to and including new variants, who knows, unless and until more people admit to themselves that they were duped, that they were fooled into going along with self-destructive madness that ruined or destroyed lives, unless and until more people admit that to themselves, there can be no meaningful reckoning.
Do you find it odd, Neil, that despite the fact that revelations are coming out in these lockdown files, things that a lot of people felt they already knew or may well have already known based on existing evidence that was out there, that the data was pretty off when it came to cases, deaths, etc. The questionable idea that children, for example, should be banned from going to school and socialising, what went on at care homes, we all kind of already knew about that. And now, in terms of a new variant pops up to scare the living pants off us. Are you surprised that now all of this is actually literally there in black and white in these messages? People like you can't be necessarily called kooky, crazy conspiracy theorists or whatever anymore. There still isn't an absolutely massive public outrage.
Well, yes, I'm completely dismayed about the lack of outrage. But, you know, the point is that it's vital to be aware that none of this is over. You know, you talk about, you know, being described as kooky, you know, swivel-eyed conspiracy theorists and all of the rest of it, as though that is in the past. It's not. It's absolutely still going on. You know, the rest of the mainstream media are at the point where they're trying to suggest that the time has come for judgment. But judgment cannot come yet. We're a step behind it. Because the awful truth is that it's all still happening. The wrongdoing is not in the past tense, it's in the present tense. And yesterday's charlatans and collaborators, they might be trying to reinvent themselves as messengers of the truth, but the crimes are nowhere near to being dealt with.
Tell me what you want done, Neil. Sorry to interrupt, but just tell me what it is exactly that you want to see happen now.
There has to be an acknowledgement. People have to admit to themselves that the guilty parties are now putting themselves in a position to judge the crimes that were committed. They did this to us. The politicians did this to us. The mainstream media did this to us. The mainstream media, most of them, are up on their high horses now about how lies and propaganda were deployed to frighten the people. But it was the mainstream media that wrote and published those scare stories to scare the pants off the people. The politicians are still there. Here's what has to happen, Patrick. Parliament is full to the rotten gunnels with MPs of all stripes from all parties, in government, in opposition, and the also-rans alongside. They made this happen, not once, not twice, but they did it over and over again. They demanded, all of them collectively, longer, harsher, quicker lockdowns. They demanded ruinous furlough while the self-employed had their livelihoods knowingly destroyed. The physical and the mental harms that were done, all of it while people out in the real world were being destroyed. Those politicians knew it was all based on lies.
What I think, what I think might be a little problem. Go on, I'll tell you what, I just want to come in with this, sorry, just because I've only got a minute or so, Neil. I know you're in full flow there, but what I worry about, Neil, in light of what you just said there, is the amount of people who have almost like a long COVID of their own, which is they're a bit sick of lockdown. They almost want to forget. Like people a bit with PTSD, kind of. They kind of want to forget about the situation. And that, I think, will play into politicians' hands. Because when things like this come out, people go, oh, right, that was a couple of years ago. It was a horrible time. I want to move on with my life. And that means that people won't be held to account, Neil. That could be a problem for people like you, maybe.
It is. It's worse than that and harder than that. What has to be done, amongst other things, is that many, many people have to simply admit, we've all done it. I had to admit longer ago that I'd been duped, that I had been fooled into thinking something that wasn't true. And it was embarrassing. It was humiliating to have to admit that I had been a victim of a prank on a global scale. But you have to go through it. First of all, people have to accept that they were duped. It's because of a desire by people who were duped, who were fooled, to not accept that and admit that they want it just to go away, because there is an element of embarrassment and humiliation that has to be dealt with. But all of those politicians, all of those that collaborated to make this happen, Johnson, Hunt, Rishi Sunak, Keir Starmer, Michael Gove, all of them that sat and came up with the propaganda, Matt Hancock and the rest of them, they are not fit for office. They have to be out of office, and steps have to be taken to make sure that those people are never again in a position to hold positions of power. Okay. And that is true on the front bench and on the opposition benches. The Parliament needs a clear out, and those people need to be gone, never to return.
Neil, thank you very much, as ever. That was Neil Oliver there. Thank you for that. Hey, look, it is obviously just worthwhile noticing as well that I imagine there'll be quite a bit there that Matt Hancock and co will refute, and certainly several people will feel as though COVID was indeed a very, very serious thing. But there we go. Coming up, is Prince Harry putting his young and impressionable fan base at risk by praising the mental health benefits of illegal drugs like cannabis? Reality TV star Kerry Katona, who turned her life around after years of drug use, is still to come. But first, as critics warn that Rishi Sunak's new plans to stop the migrant boats are already unworkable, is the government right to say that British citizenship is a privilege and not a human right? I'll be with my superstar panel very shortly.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys, and tonight, in a set of tough new laws announced by Rishi Sunak tomorrow, migrants arriving on small boats will be removed from the UK and sent to a safe third country. I will ask my superstar panel if they agree with a government source who said that becoming a British citizen is a privilege, not a human right for illegal migrants. Tonight, I am joined by Carol Malone, Benjamin Busworth, wave, and Belinda DeLucy. Yes, there we go, thank you very much. Now, but with Britain still hamstrung by the European Convention on Human Rights, are we dragging ourselves into the Rwanda failure 2.0? Fleet Street legend Kelvin McKenzie gives Rishi a dose of reality later this hour. Also coming up, as Partygate detective and Labour's new Chief of Staff Sue Gray is accused of breaking civil service rules, guess how many times Slippery Starmer tried to wriggle out of this little question?
Did you first approach Sue Gray to be your Chief of Staff?
Nick, I know her personally. I met her when I was Director of Public Prosecution.
I will try again, but you can't tell me when you first approached her.
I've been looking for a Chief of Staff for...
Just answer the question. I'll ask if Keir Starmer is the architect of a cover-up in tonight's Media Buzz. Plus, as the drug-loving Duke of Sussex glorifies marijuana, for easing his mental health issues. Does Harry need to quit the boyish boasting before he does real harm to society? Reality TV star Kerry Katona, who's had her own highly publicised battle with drugs, speaks out on this new Sussex controversy very, very shortly. We will also bring you the latest on the WhatsApp weasel, Matt Hancock, in tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. The first front pages will arrive in a matter of mere moments. I can see them over there, actually. Right after, though, Polly Middlehurst.
Patrick, thank you, and good evening to you. At just after 10 o'clock, our top story on GB News tonight. The Metropolitan Police has apologised for not arresting former officer Wayne Couzens before he murdered Sarah Everard. Couzens has been sentenced to a further 19 months today after pleading guilty to 3 charges of indecent exposure. The crimes happened in the months before he kidnapped, raped and killed Miss Everard in March 2021. The 50-year-old is already serving a whole life sentence. The force said his behaviour should make everyone in policing hang their heads in shame. And also in the news today, charities are warning thousands of asylum seekers will be left permanently in limbo under new government plans to tackle illegal migration. The new laws would ban those crossing Our apologies. As I was saying, the new laws would ban those crossing the channel in small boats from claiming asylum and from returning to the UK. The government's promised to provide more safe routes, and 3,000 people have made the journey so far this year. That's nearly double the year before. The Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, says the government isn't doing enough.
We need action to stop the dangerous boat crossings that are putting lives at risk and also undermining border security. That's why we've called for a new cross-border police unit to go after the criminal gangs that are really driving this, as well as a new agreement with France and an overhaul of the asylum system to end hotel use.
Police in South Wales investigating a fatal car crash that happened at the weekend have referred themselves to the Independent Office for Police Conduct. 3 young people were killed and 2 more critically injured, but the car wasn't found until 2 days after the group went missing. That's despite being metres off a main road. Eve Smith and Darcy Ross from Newport and Raffle Jean from Cardiff died in the accident, while Sophie Rousson and Shane Laughlin remain in a critical condition in hospital. A friend has criticised the police force for not acting quickly enough. Now, firefighters have voted overwhelmingly to accept a new pay offer, ending the prospect of strike action. The deal is for a 7% pay increase, backdated to July last year, plus an additional 5% from July. 96% of Fire Brigade Union members accepted the offer, but the General Secretary said it was another real terms pay cut. And lastly, a yellow weather warning for snow and ice is in place across large parts of the UK tonight. The Met Office issued alerts for much of the South, Midlands, South Wales, Northern Ireland, and it started to take hold at 9 o'clock tonight and will last until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. One is already in place in northern and eastern Scotland and northeast England as well. Well, tomorrow, believe it or not, is expected to be the coldest night of the year. Notwithstanding one small technical glitch, that is your latest news. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News, the People's Channel. Back now to Patrick.
All right, you wonderful people. Tomorrow's news tonight now in our Media Buzz. Let's kick off with the very first look at the front pages, hot off the press. What have I got? I've got the Metro. The Metro leads with the tragic story of a family losing a second daughter, Eve Smith, to a car crash 8 years after the death of her sister, Jana Doyle. Good grief. OK, we're going to move on now to The Independent. The Independent says, "Arise, Sir Dad," is the headline in The Independent, as Boris Johnson wants to give his father a knighthood in the resignation honours list, which I think is fantastic in a way. Senior Conservatives have claimed that the plan would corrode public trust. Yeah. My superstar panel, they are back with me. I have got Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, Senior reporter for the newspaper, Benjamin Butterworth, and former MEP and political commentator, it's Belinda de Lucy. Now, under new legislation to be announced by Rishi Sunak tomorrow, asylum seekers who arrive illegally on small boats will be prohibited from claiming British citizenship and removed to a third country. Despite the previous failure, though, of the Rwanda plan, Number 10 are insisting that tough new laws can be brought in without leaving the European Convention on Human Rights. Yeah, OK. Ahead of tomorrow's announcement, a government source told The Times, "It is bad enough that illegal migrants abuse our asylum system to frustrate their removal, but it is far worse that they can settle here permanently and apply to become a British citizen. The ability to settle in this country and become a British citizen is, and this is the crucial bit, is not a human right, it is a privilege, which is why we will ban illegal migrants from ever coming back to the UK after we have removed them." But what do you make of that statement? Is entering this country a privilege rather than a human right, Carol?
Of course it is. Of course it's a privilege. It's not just entering this country, but being allowed to stay in this country and everything that comes with that. And it's the height of arrogance for economic migrants, people coming from safe countries, to imagine they can just come here and settle and do it illegally. It's not on, you know. And I think what Rishi has done, I hope to God it works. Labour are already trashing it and saying it's unworkable, but it will become unworkable if it has opposition from Labour. But the way it stands, it's a very good idea, and I'm pretty sure that Sunak will have the country behind him.
I'm going to come back down the line and talk about the workability and the legal ramification of this in a minute. I'm just going to stick for now, Benjamin, with this idea as to whether or not it is a human right to be able to come and live and work in Britain, or actually it's a privilege.
Well, we're privileged to have been born here, and these people who are fleeing often terrible situations did not have that privilege through no consequence but the bad luck of where they were born. And it is a human right to flee war and torture for a safe country. And that's what Britain is. And too often, or often enough maybe, we talk about our proud history of taking all those Jewish refugees and the work of the late Sir Nicholas Winterton to this country. And we take pride in that today. And yet when we turn down these people from countries like Yemen or Afghanistan...
But we're not doing that.
We are shaming our history of World War II because we are not letting these refugees in.
You know that there are safe routes into this country for people from Afghanistan. And I just want to say, and talking about the heart of this country, we've given visas to 190,000 Ukrainians this year. So it's tosh to say...
Why is it to give it to Ukrainians and not Afghans? That's racist.
We do
as far as I'm
Afghans.
concerned.
All of you stop. OK. And breathe.
Are you trying to be a presenter now, Patrick?
Oh, a bit, yeah. That's what I get paid for. Obviously not paid enough. Belinda, is it a human right or a privilege?
It is 100% not a human right to become a British citizenship. It is a privilege, as it should be. Our country has spent centuries of spilling blood and fighting and going through civil war and famine to create a country with incredible values, incredible human rights values, and we've earned it through the blood spilt of this country. People cannot just turn up here and be arrogant and assume that they get the same rights. Remember, citizenship means being able to vote. So if you have open borders and you let everyone come in here and just gain citizenship like that, the demos will be completely destroyed. We won't be able to
We kind of do have open borders currently. That's what it feels
Can I ask Benjamin?
And this isn't the Holocaust, Benjamin. Stop comparing economic migrants to the Holocaust victims.
These people, many of them are coming from atrocious situations.
From France.
You talk about blood spilt. These people have had their own blood
is not our
spilt when they're coming from countries
Let me
like
come in here.
Afghanistan.
Let me come in here, Benjamin, because I want to ask you about this, OK? Because when it comes to those countries, we do our bit, OK? And we have absolutely stepped up, including, actually, in many cases, trying to arm the people who are defending themselves in those countries. Should the people of Britain not have a right to something that Belinda was alluding to earlier, which is the rights to live in a country that, frankly, has been made a very successful country by their forefathers and not messed up by people who used to live in other countries? So if we've got a better country, should we not be proud of that and protect it for ourselves?
Well, you might need a history lesson. Britain is a successful country built on migrants. We are a country that had made half the world British and then over generations have invited people to this country. You know, our NHS is built on people that came in the 60s.
We
we've got a generation of people from around the world.
In the 16th century, long before empire.
Okay. And so, the idea that we are not a country of migrants is nonsense. We are. And the truth is that if we are a moral and upstanding leader in the world, then we should take these refugees.
You've got to stop this myth, this lie, that everyone coming on those boats is fleeing war and persecution.
Well, then you've got to stop this myth and lie that they're all rapists and murderers.
We never said that.
We know that more than 40% of the people coming are from safe countries. And by the time even the genuine refugees get here, they've passed through half a dozen safe countries. So they're not that desperate, are they, to stay in those
Now, that's
countries?
the point, actually. That is the point. Belinda, I'll just bring you in on this one, because when we talk about it being a human right to live and work in Britain, or a privilege, if you've passed through numerous different safe countries, you could argue you should say that, and that's where the human right element comes in. If someone's in France and they go, well, I just want to leave France because I prefer the look of Britain, that implies to me they think it is their God-given human right to live wherever the heck they want.
Yeah, the UK is one of the most generous countries. We spend £13,500 per head per year on every asylum seeker that comes to this country, and access to all our welfare, which
we don't.
Yes,
7 million pounds a day.
The most important thing is that we cannot open up to the poor. That will make us a poor, and it doesn't rise up the global poverty. It doesn't increase the well-being of the global poor, letting everyone in. And what Benjamin's doing is constantly blurring the line between economic migrants shopping around every EU country until they find the most generous one.
We've only got a couple of minutes, and I want
to talk... But it's factually wrong, so they can just get any benefits. That doesn't apply to economic migrants, let alone refugees.
OK, right. So, I just want to move this on, because we've got a couple more minutes on this, and this is a key point that's going to be... I mean, this is going to be the news tomorrow, OK, which is what on earth Rishi Sunak is planning on doing if he's not going to pull us out of the ECHR or just flagrantly break international law. Then how the living heck is he going to sort out what's going on in the Channel?
What he has to do is find a safe country that isn't Rwanda, and he has to do a returns deal with President Macron. That will go some way to stop it. He also has to say clearly that the minute someone from a safe country comes in here, say an Albanian, they're not allowed to even stay there 28 days. That they can be immediately deported. There can't be any argument about there's nothing that means that those people should be able to stay. So those three things would be a start.
I mean, I've no dispute with the fact that we shouldn't be taking Albanians. Countries like Germany, Sweden, Netherlands have taken 0 Albanians. So I really don't get why that's not more straightforward. But the truth is that Rishi Sunak announcing the same claim over and over again, it's got it's got more to do, it's got less to do with small boats and more to do with the Tories' small votes. It has.
How long is trying to spin? How long have you been sitting on that one, mate? I like it now. I like it. Belinda, just talk to me about the legal consequences to this, because I don't really see a way that we can't come out of the ECHR and at the same time deport who we want to deport, or at least offer a deterrent there.
Well, as Benjamin mentioned, Germany has zero tolerance policy towards Albanians, and yet they're in the ECHR. So actually, it's this government, even though we're within these treaties that allow us to deport, they refuse to because they want mass immigration.
Would you feel comfortable?
I do want mass immigration,
Would you feel comfortable? I'm going to ask you all the same
Yeah.
question here now. Belinda, would you feel comfortable if we did just break international law?
100%, and countries break it all the time. The EU breaks international law with WTO rules. Germany broke international law in 2020, and no one says a peep. But good old England has to suffer. The UK has to suffer.
And what it is, it's to do with the modern slavery laws. Germany and France, they won't have any truck with Albanians trying to break those laws. But in this country, we have allowed ourselves to be manipulated by this.
So you would be happy. I can tell you would be. I take it you wouldn't.
The nonsense of those claims are the fact that France takes far more refugees than the UK.
Have you seen the size of it? Have you seen the size of France?
Yes. We are a tiny country.
France has a similar population to us. And I tell you, if we built as many homes as France did, we might be in a better situation.
Did you just hear what Belinda said?
England is one of the most highly densely populated countries in Europe, bar Monaco and Malta and Vatican City. We cannot take more people in.
Britain is full of pensioners. We desperately need more people.
We
need more people of work.
There you go. Is that really what you're saying?
No, I'm saying we need more workers. Refugees are economic.
Benjamin Butterworth's advert for Dignitas there, ladies and gentlemen. All right, look, thank you very much. I know it wasn't really. Right, coming up, I'll tell you what, this show has been fireworks from start to finish. Coming up, my superstar panel debate if Slippery Starmer is the architect of a shady cover-up, as he refuses to say when he approached Partygate detective Sue Gray to become his chief of staff. But next, I'm very pleased to say, that reality TV star Kerry Katona talks about the Duke of Dope, Prince Harry, and his lauding of marijuana for easing his mental health issues. All that coming your way in a matter of seconds.
First and foremost, I'm a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back, winners. Now, Prince Harry sparked outrage at the weekend after he praised illegal drugs for helping him deal with his mental health issues during yet another tell-all interview, this time with controversial trauma expert Dr. Gabor Matai. The Duke of Dope told viewers that marijuana is different. That actually really did help me. But Harry's highest praise came for this mind-altering Amazonian drug, ayahuasca, which is said to have induced vomiting and hallucinations. He says, "For me, I started doing it recreationally and then started to realise how good it was for me." Harry told his impressionable audience, "I would say it is one of the fundamental parts of my life that changed me and helped me deal with the traumas and the pains of the past." Well, all of these drugs celebrated by Prince Harry, and particularly cannabis, are widely acknowledged by medical experts to cause long-term damage to brain development and mental health, with psychosis a very real danger. Now, one household name who's battled with addiction is reality TV star Kerry Katona, who I am delighted to say joins me tonight. Kerry, thank you very much. This is an absolute pleasure to be actually meeting you in person. Kerry, you've been open about your battles with drugs in the past, it's fair to say, and congratulations, obviously, on overcoming all of this. Now, does Prince Harry's reckless promotion of cannabis, particularly to his younger fans, bear in mind who his audience is, risk doing genuine harm to society, do you think?
Absolutely not. I'm not being funny, but how many people go out and drink every weekend or every day? Alcohol is one of the biggest drugs that has been allowed by the government. My auntie died from alcohol. You know, kids go out to the park on a Friday night after school and they all get drunk. So many teenagers go and try marijuana. You know, I actually really want to do ayahuasca. It's something I'm really interested in doing because I'm a very spiritual person. I've been told it's a very spiritual thing. I've never done weed. Weed's never been my cup of tea. I've done loads of coke in the past, as we all very well know. It's very well known. And I have no regrets, but I never tell anybody to go do what I have done.
Yeah, I get that. But Kerry, the issue is Prince Harry's crossed that line, I think, for want of a better phrase, given what we're talking about here, has crossed that line and basically said, well, weed actually benefited him. So kids will be looking at this now and going, if I get on the skunk, I'm going to be all right. And that's not true.
No. I'm sorry, but if Prince Harry jumped off a cliff with millions of other people go and do it, no, they wouldn't.
Well,
He's just saying what benefits him.
He's an influencer,
Sorry?
Kerry.
Aren't we all? I mean, I put it in my book and I've got 5 kids. None of my kids are doing cocaine. Do you know what I mean? And at a time, cocaine did help me. It did help me. I turned to cocaine because of my mental health. There was no one there to help me. I was on no medication at one point. It gave me the confidence I needed. But that doesn't mean that it didn't ruin me. It wasn't the right thing for me to do at the time.
Is your life better now that you're clean and serene now?
Sorry, say it again?
Is your life better now that you're clean and sober?
1,000,000%. But there's also, I don't know if you've seen the documentary on Netflix. It's called How to Change Your Mind. I'm a massive believer in plant-based herbs that are really good for your mind. A lot of it is all psychedelic, like LSD, MDMA. If I get any of these letters wrong, it's because I'm dyslexic, so I do apologise.
It's all right. You do quite well so far.
There's another one.
Let me just
I
ask
spoke
you
to a doctor in Bristol, about, I think it's MDMA, that they actually use for post-traumatic stress in microdosing. And it's scientifically proven to help. This is not me telling you.
But this is all prescription stuff that we're talking about here now. This is all prescription stuff. And look, whatever goes on behind closed doors...
But they're on the verge of prescribing marijuana anyway.
But given that Harry's
you get CBD oils now, you get these gummy bears, you get all kinds...
you do. And should you be promoting that kind of stuff to kids? This is the thing, because Prince Harry bangs on about mental health.
He's not like he sat down with a bunch of kindergartens and turned around and going, hey, kids, go and do drugs. You know, it helps. He isn't saying that. And I think you're putting words into his mouth. He's explaining on TV, on a grown-up show, that what has helped his mental health. He's not going to kids into schools. This helped me and that helped me. That is not what he's doing. I think you turn it into something that it isn't. I think the press are actually turning against him in a way that is, I think it's all rubbish. I really, really do. His fight has been against the press, not the royal family, and now the press are fighting against him. I've listened to his autobiography. I think he's brilliant. I'm all Harry. I need to calm down.
What about people though? What about though the campaigners who have said that they've had kids who have sadly had terrible experiences with drugs, in some cases died? They've come out.
Yeah, but you can't blame that on Harry.
They've come out and said that Prince Harry was reckless.
It's not. I'm sorry. I have to completely disagree with you. He's telling his story of his truth. He's done a memoir. I've wrote 3 autobiographies, and the things that I have put in that book about my life, I don't see kids going out copying what I've done. I'm an influencer, not that anyone's going to want to copy what I do. But I think the way people are turning this on, it's just another excuse to have a go at Harry. I'm sorry, but it is. He's not going into schools.
I would argue, Kerry, there is a key point of difference.
If you've got mental health problems, go and take marijuana. That's not what he's done.
It's not a million miles off that. Now, this is where I would argue there's a key point of difference between you, Kerry. I would argue there's a massive difference between you, Kerry, and Prince Harry, for a starter like you.
Huge.
But apart from that, you told a story about addiction. Yes, at times you're saying it helped you. I think people can understand that because of the place that you were in. But that you have come out the other side of that and realised that life is better clean and serene.
Yeah.
What Harry appeared to say, really, was not I've come out the other side of this now and realised that everything's actually better without that stuff. He's saying he's bang involved with it, pretty much.
But did he pretty much say that? I mean, let's be honest as well. He's talking in his book. He's talking about when he's lost his mother. I mean, I'm quite surprised at how well he's turned out considering what he's been through as a kid. To be in a family so well known, to lose his mum so publicly, and to go through what he's been through. I'm surprised he didn't turn out more like me, if I'm honest. Do you know what I mean? I think he's done really well, and he's only telling his truth and his story and his experience and what works for him. By all means, the amount of rubbish that I got over the years, you know, young kids look up to you, you're this, you're that. I am me, I'm a human being. I'm going to make mistakes in my past. I'm going to do what's right for me, nobody
but this
else.
is another key difference, though, Kerry, because you, bless you, have never stood up there and gone, I am a role model for society. I am going to change the world. I am going to change my family for the better. I am going to be a shining beacon of hope. You didn't do that. You went, look, I made mistakes, here we go. Prince Harry does do that. Prince Harry wants to stop.
But I do also think, do you not find it really quite refreshing as well for me, for somebody who has bipolar, for somebody who has been scrutinised by the press and been in the industry for as long as I have, I mean, 26 years, I mean, back in the day, you know, it was Prince William, Prince Harry and Kerry Katona who were the most hacked people by the news of the world. So I know exactly what he went through listening to his autobiography. How many teenagers, whether you're in the royal family or whether you're not, have not turned to some kind of drug? You know, kids all experiment, and they always do. And they, no matter what you say to them, they're going to go. Do you know what I mean? But this is his story and his truth. And I think, I find it really refreshing that he's admitting to this. It makes me feel like, it makes me like him that bit more to think, God, he's human.
You don't think he needs help? You don't think he needs help?
Do I think he needs help? I think we all need help in some way. I won't say he needs help. I think therapy should be for everybody. I think it should be mandatory. I think everybody should have some kind of therapy. I really do. Your brain is something that should have some kind of help. Like if you break your arm, if you break your leg, or you've got some muscles.
Can I ask you a question, Kerry? Which is, when you were in the madness, right? When you were properly in the thick of it, if you'd have seen someone of Prince Harry's stature coming out and saying that the drug of choice that you were on at the time was helpful to him, do you think a little bit of your mind, you would have justified that to yourself and gone, OK, sweet. Well, if he's on it, then I can be on it as well, even if you knew it was wrong. You don't think that would happen?
No, not at all, because the amount of people who I was doing drugs with at the time were saying the same thing, and I looked up to all of them.
All right, look, Kerry, thank you.
It did work for me, so...
No, Kerry, look, thank you very, very much, and I really appreciate you coming on, and it is great to meet you, albeit, albeit virtually, but I think you are an absolute...
And I apologise, I have no makeup on. It's very late at night for me, and I'm going to bed now, so...
That's all right, you can have some of mine. I look like I'm in drag. Anyway, Kerry, thank you very much. Kerry Katona there, the wonderful Kerry Katona. Right, OK, so, coming up in Uncancelled, Fleet Street legend Kelvin McKenzie tears into Rishi Sunak's new migrant laws for failing to address the problem at its roots, the people smugglers. But next, in Media Buzz, they're back again, as Labour is accused of trying to hide details of Sue Gray's appointment. Has slippery Starmer's cover-up been exposed? We debate that right after this very short interlude.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m. Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Let's return to tomorrow's news tonight in our media buzz. I am holding the very, very warm front pages. They've just been delivered, hot off the press, and the Mail splashes with the biggest crackdown on illegal migration in decades, which is set to be announced by the Prime Minister tomorrow. The Eye also leads with the expected announcement of new migrant laws, which will bar all asylum claimants who cross the Channel illegally from ever returning to the UK. And The Guardian's at it. Their front page reveals more than 1,000 super emitter sites are flooding the global atmosphere with potent greenhouse gas methane, which is thought to speed up climate change. But enough about what goes on inside the Guardian's office. The Daily Star labelled Boris Johnson the Gong Father after he put forward his father for a knighthood. The Telegraph leads with more from the lockdown files as WhatsApp messages reveal that former Health Secretary Matt Hancock plotted to take a disability centre off the table if a Red Wall MP threatened to rebel. I mean, that's pretty strong stuff, to be fair. More on the media buzz now, though, with tonight's superstar panel. Here is Daily Express columnist, it's Carol Malone. We've got senior reporter for the I newspaper, Benjamin Butterworth, and former MEP and political commentator, Belinda de Lucy. Now, this afternoon, an urgent question was granted in the House of Commons concerning the appointment of Partygate inquisitor Sue Gray to Labour's Chief of Staff. Responding, Paymaster General and Minister for the Cabinet Office Jeremy Quinn inferred that Starmer and Gray had breached rules because they bypassed ACOBA, the Advisory Committee on Business Appointments. Take a look.
The rules state that approval must be obtained prior to a job offer being announced. The Cabinet Office has not, as yet, been informed that the relevant notification to ACOBA has been made.
Well, Slippery Starmer has denied contacting Sue Gray during her Partygate report, but this morning he couldn't answer exactly when she was approached. Watch.
Did you first approach Sue Gray to be your Chief of Staff?
Nick, I know her personally. I met her when I was Director of Public Prosecution.
Might I ask when you first approached her to be your Chief of Staff?
I've been on the lookout for a Chief of Staff for a little while now.
So when did you approach? Can I ask when you approached Sue?
Look,
if I may call her, Sue?
I've been looking for a Chief of Staff for a number of weeks now.
I will try again, and obviously you don't have to answer, but when did you first contact Sue Gray about the possibility of becoming your Chief of Staff?
Well, Nick, that's going to be laid out by Sue.
But you can't tell me that.
Nick, nothing improper at all.
No, but you can't tell me when you first approached her.
I've been looking for a Chief of Staff for a little while.
Why won't
but
you tell me, Sir?
there's nothing improper at all.
No, but just answer why you won't tell me when you first made contact with her.
I'm not going to go through lock, stock and barrel, but there's nothing improper.
If it's not improper, why won't you say, it was a month ago, Nick?
It was, I've been looking for some time and there's nothing improper in the slightest.
Do you think there might not have been anything improper in the slightest there? Anyone? Right, OK, Starmer has long accused Boris Johnson of being dishonest. Carol Malone is... God, just have it.
That's just absolutely outrageous, you know. If he says there's nothing improper, why won't he say? Well, wait, it's pretty obvious why he won't say. It was just last week he was bragging to colleagues about how well he knew Sue Gray and how long, and that he'd offered her the job.
I love this. By the way, Carol, can I just say, this is what happens, right?
What?
In politics, it's it's my good friend Sue, it's my good friend Sue. Then it kicks off. Never met Sue. Absolutely hate her. I don't even like the way she smells. Anyway,
This whole thing stinks to high heaven, and he says there's nothing improper, but he's making it look like there is currently. And for him, what he said on that show is, he said it's for her if she sees fit to say, no, it isn't. This is let me finish. This is a woman whose report brought down the Prime Minister and 3 cabinet ministers. It's really important to know when she was.
Benjamin, what am I supposed to infer from that? I've got the leader of the opposition saying, I think, what was it, 9, 12 times there, well, not answering a question. What am I supposed to infer from that?
Well, you know, we tried to hide it, but the truth is that 40 years ago, Sue Gray was a civil service plant to overthrow a Tory government and fill a suitcase with bottles of wine. I mean, look, it's just what codswallop. But you really have to jump through some mental hoops to try and suggest that the actions of Boris Johnson and his staff during COVID were the responsibility of the cause of Sue Gray. You know, the truth is, and actually, if you're going to make any suggestion that Sue Gray was inappropriate, well, I tell you what, why didn't a single Tory minister or Arlene Foster of this parish or any Labour politician, not one of them said she lacked integrity. They all said she was outstanding. And so the criticism is that, well, hang on a minute. If I may, you are slightly deflecting because the point... I'm not. Well, you are a bit, because the point in question now is about whether or not Sue Gray, disher-outer of rules and regs, has in fact followed the rules and regs herself, Belinda.
Oh my gosh, it was almost as painful as watching Keir respond to what a woman is. It's like he cannot answer simple questions. And by avoiding answering it, he is saying he's guilty to the world. And the problem is Keir has sold himself as a saint to this country, you know? Boris never sold himself as a saint. We all knew he was flawed. Keir in his 2022 speech was, I am the man of integrity, I'm the man of honesty. Yeah. And yet, I tell you how he gets to be honest. He completely deflects and avoids answering any question truthfully.
If this woman was supposed to be of unimpeachable integrity, which is how she was sold to us, why hasn't she spoken up for herself? And the guy, your man on the screen there, let me finish. She was supposed to tell the civil service when she was approached about the job. She didn't do that. Now, why do we think she didn't do that?
But
why didn't she?
But no, that's not quite right.
That is quite right.
Has to do...
Civil service rules say you have to say.
Yes, exactly, and she will. She has to go through that. In order to be
let me. Right. The key point here for me.
He's misunderstood.
Was that before any job is announced, you are supposed to, according to what I heard in the House of Commons, you are supposed to have said that you've been approached. And what we heard there was that she hadn't said that.
But she will have to go through that process.
But she hasn't done it.
Yeah, but there's no dispute that she won't. She will. And that's exactly what Sir Keir...
I think the dispute...
Because they could overrule it if they wanted to.
The dispute is her integrity here.
The truth... I mean, look, when this was happening, absolutely nobody disputed her integrity. And the truth is, to see people sit here and try and attack the person that opposed the lying charlatan that was in Downing Street, while you defend a backstabber and a liar that is Boris Johnson,
can I just say something?
Hypocrisy.
Quickly, because Belinda's got to be in here.
Grace Sutherland is a Labour activist. He was fighting to depose Boris.
Right.
Why didn't Sue Gray? She must have known about that. Why didn't she say that?
No, I will not let you interrupt. Belinda Deleuze, wonderful Belinda Deleuze.
I think there's at least one viewer that might want to hear what.
Yes, there is. I want to hear.
Oh, thank you. I just think this screams dodgy. I think this sends a message out that Whitehall is not impartial, that it is biased, and it also sends out a message that if you want to get a powerful position in the Labour Party, use the civil service.
Yes,
that's a great path to get into the Labour Party. This is so much more important. This brings the reputation and professionalism of Whitehall into complete disrepute, and this is by Keir denying to answer the question properly, and there being this massive delay in understanding at what time did Keir approach the woman who was part of deposing our Prime Minister.
Let's not forget This was no ordinary civil servant. This woman was the arbiter of morals and truth
But can I just
at the heart of government.
there is another thing here. There is another thing
Without
here.
impeachment, she was considered outstanding in that
But
role.
this is an interesting point, which was alluded to in the House of Commons. We've just got time to bring this in, which is that Keir Starmer himself has a duty to uphold the Civil Service Code as well. Now, he's portrayed himself as a saint. Sue Gray, whether or not she intended to, has been portrayed as a saint, as even you acknowledged there, Benjamin, whether she did that herself or otherwise.
But she's never said a word publicly.
Now, if it turns out that Keir Starmer accidentally or deliberately broke the code, right, and Sue Gray did the same, then do they not both have to go, Benjamin?
Because they're from the left, therefore they get
but what other balderdash? People that defended a man who set COVID rules that tens of millions...
You're deflecting, Ben. You're talking. You're not talking about the issue. You're talking about...
Well, you'd never know because I haven't finished the comment.
We've asked you about this.
Just answer the question.
Yes.
Well, no, of course they can. There is no suggestion they've done anything wrong. It's... Right.
So why doesn't he say?
There's no suggestion they've done anything wrong, right? And actually, the truth is that, you know, this is a real Westminster bubble story that most people don't care about. And what you've got is people wanting to be in a serious party of government.
So why won't he say when he offers?
Okay.
Boris Johnson should have gone.
Why doesn't
We're moving on, people. Good. This show is wild. Right. I love it. Coming up, we will bring you the latest on Matt Hancock and his lawyer's viral gaffe that happened right here on GB News last night. That's in tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. Next, though, in Uncancelled, Rishi Sunak and Suella Braverman will unveil a bold new plan to stop the boats tomorrow, but Fleet Street legend Kelvin McKenzie has some choice words. He thinks it's doomed to failure. He explains why next.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel. Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's time now for Uncancelled, where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. And new plans to ban channel migrants from returning to Britain have been revealed as part of Rishi Sunak's proposed crackdown on illegal crossings. Expected to be unveiled by the Home Secretary tomorrow, the illegal migration bill will set out new measures, making it easier for the Home Office to remove illegal migrants to third countries. Now, the timing of tomorrow's bill couldn't be more vital after GB News' Mark White revealed today that over 3,000 people have crossed the channel so far this year, double the number in the same period as last year. Well, joining me now is Fleet Street legend Kelvin McKenzie to weigh into all of this. Now, Kelvin, we've been debating this throughout the course of the show, but as far as I understand, you think it might be doomed to failure. This is Rishi Sunak's plan to, let's be honest with you, not only stop the boats and reduce illegal immigration, also to win the next election. You think that's dead in the water?
I honestly, painfully, I say it is. The truth about the matter is the smugglers will only have to show this programme or show the front page of the Times this morning or any other of the papers and say, look at this, you better get over here a bit sharpish, they're going to crack down on you. Honestly, the flood will continue. There is nothing that can stop it with normal legislation, normal understanding. I've said before, and I say again tonight, right, we need the SAS or their equivalent out there, simply shoot the smugglers. Kill them. I know it sounds painful. If we were Israel and this was happening in Iran, do you believe Israel would say, oh, I worry about what the world thinks?
Well, quite famously, they didn't, did they?
And they're not going to again, by the way. So if Iran have got ideas of nuclear bombs, then I'm afraid that's going to disappear, as with their lives. No, so that is the only solution. The only issue is we're a sophisticated Western world and we will not do what's in our interest. So expect those 3,000 to be 30,000 at the end of the year to be
well, they now
like
know that they've got a very limited window, potentially, to get here. And the problem is that I suspect what Rishi Sunak's about to announce tomorrow is contingent on us either leaving the European Convention on Human Rights, which he says he isn't going to do, or breaking international law, which, again, he's probably not going to do. So, actually, we might as well just drain the channel and allow them to walk across.
Right, and I know that most people no longer take what politicians say about this issue seriously. No. They just say it's all of that and there is no action. It's a shame because we need something done and they're not going to do it.
If Rishi Sunak sent the SAS in to just shoot one people smuggler dead, do you think he wins the next election?
Well, I'd be more inclined if he shot 12 or 20 dead, but you're quite right. It would be great. It'd be fantastic. And the other issue is aggravate the living daylights out of the French. And, that must be an enjoyable moment, mustn't it?
They wouldn't be allowed to care about it, because if there's any pretence that they care about stopping the people smugglers, they presumably wouldn't mind that they would have
done something about it already.
But you think that, apart from potentially helping to ruin the country in a Channel migrant crossing sense, there's doing something quite important economically as well, which is also, frankly, flatlining Britain.
That our country has a terrible feel about it at the moment. If you're talking about trying to have businesses, you want to grow them, right? What you're seeing is you're seeing businesses saying, I would rather grow my business in the United States than grow it here, right? And that is a disaster for our country. We are wealth creators or we're nothing, and what we've become is a collection of people worried about what public sector workers think. What we should be worried about is how do we grow businesses, because when we grow businesses, we grow employment and we grow profits and we grow wages. If we don't do that, we're done for. And Sunak doesn't speak. And the idea that they're going to put up corporation tax from, I know it's an arcane thing and doesn't affect anybody probably even listening here, 19 to 25%, a 32% pay rise. You know what happens to our tax? At the moment, we're the 7th in the world of good places for business tax. We go down to 33 in the world. Why should anybody invest here when they can go to the United States or they can go anywhere? The pound, the investment moves, and it moves where you can get a decent return.
It's national suicide, isn't it? Why on earth would we want to deliberately not make ourselves as attractive as we possibly can to big business?
And we talk about Brexit. Oh, we got this big opportunity to do this, that and the other. And what do? Nothing. At the moment, we're doing the nothing, and we're paying for it. So every time you pick up you go onto a news site, a financial news site, another company announces that they're going to float in the United States, right? We need that money. I know in my own family, I know somebody who's given up years of pay, right? Desperate to make his business work. Where did he get his first major order from? Not from the UK, which has shut the damn door on everything he tried. It was, once again, the United States. And we are going to have to face this, and we've got socialism coming up. We've got socialism. How bad is that going to be?
Absolutely. Yes, look, absolutely. And it's important as well. I just want to refer to something that was mentioned earlier on when we were, of course, talking about the people smuggling gangs, etc. We were massively talking hypothetically and in slightly jovial terms. We do not in any way, shape or form advocate actual violence against anybody, certainly not people smugglers or indeed anyone, it was in a context of maybe taking the SAS and using them in a particular way. And I just want to make that incredibly clear to everybody. We were not in any way, shape or form actually advocating violence whatsoever. Kelvin McKenzie, back to the economic. No.
Well, hold on a second. I was.
No, he wasn't advocating any violence.
I was advocating the SAS go in and kill
Kelvin,
smugglers.
we are live on national television. So please stop it.
Exactly.
Okay, right, please stop it.
It's not local television.
He definitely was not advocating any kind of violence. Now, back to the economic side of stuff, OK? So, do you think that, realistically, what we have done when it comes to taking advantage of Brexit would be a little bit like the equivalent of going into McDonald's and ordering a salad? Why haven't we actually gone the whole hog?
I have no idea. I've no idea. Sunak said he believed in it. Hunt doesn't believe in it. Now, Hunt's just sitting there for some obscure reason, in not saying very much, and everything he does seems to be costly as far as ordinary people are concerned. I am worried uniquely about the economic future of our country. Steaming down the road, we've got the even worse coming. We've got socialism coming. But the Conservatives, what do they actually believe? Do they believe in wealth creation? Do they even believe in capitalism anymore? All we seem to be is deluded with the idea that somebody has to be subsidised. The whole of the nation appears to be subsidised. We've got to have some pain. Nobody wants to have the pain, not even the smugglers.
OK. Kelvin McKenzie there, thank you very much, in a rip-roaring edition of Uncancelled. I think the ironically named, given what we've just heard there. Kelvin, thank you very, very much. Right, well, it's time today to reveal the greatest Britain and Union Jackass before I suffer some kind of massive cardiac episode. Here we go.
You're doing good.
Right, Carol Malone, Benjamin Butterworth and Belinda DeLucy join me now. Shall we do the greatest Britain first? And I'm going to do it with Carol. Carol, who is your greatest
Mine are the
Britain?
people that were organising and performing in the upcoming Live Aid Spectacular in June at Wembley. They're raising money for Ukraine. This money will help rebuild Ukraine. And that's what I love about Britain. When we see an injustice, we do something positive and we act about it.
Benjamin, your greatest Britain?
Mine is Tom Harwood of This Parish for a brilliant monologue on last week's Question Time about the fact that we need to stop opposing every type of development, whether it's wind farms or fracking or new houses so people Tom and I's age can get on the housing ladder. He was excellent.
Well, it's funny you should say that because I believe we can have a quick look at it.
We live in a country now where every single politician, every single political party from each direction find reasons to say no, to stop development, to stop growth, to stop our own homegrown energy. Just build it. Just do it.
Oh, you can't stop Harwood. You can't stop Harwood. Right, Belinda, go on, your greatest Britain.
Well, this is a double whammy for GB News because I have chosen GB News' very own Stephen Allen for his brilliant interview last night with lawyer Jonathan Code. Watch it if you haven't yet. Has a real stinger in the end. He was calm, cool and very composed when accused of all sorts of things that were proved otherwise by the end of the interview.
We've got the clip. Play the clip.
I'm in a position to be able to comment on this and mentioned that I'd been approached by Matt Hancock. I asked you not to mention that.
As a courtesy to the lady who approached me to act for MH, Matt Hancock, I would be grateful if it was mentioned that he asked me to act for him. So it seems that you actually...
You're absolutely right, that it's my mistake. I missed out the knot. I take all of that back.
Oh, my gosh. Right, OK, the winner is Belinda and it is, of course, Steve and Alan. There we go. I know. Today's greatest Britain is the wonderful Steve and Alan. Now, time for Union Jackass. I'll work my way back down the line in the previous order. Carol, hit me.
Mine's Prince Harry, to the interview where, yet again, he opened his big, irresponsible mouth and told the world how taking Class A psychedelic drugs and Class B cannabis helped him, made him feel better about himself. This is going to affect impressionable young people. He's a dangerous man.
Strong. It's strong, although we're used to that on this show.
It's dangerous. Young people are going to think that if it made him better, it might make them better too. It's just not on.
Benjamin Butterworth.
Mine is Stanley Johnson, who ridiculously has been nominated for a knighthood. This is despite the fact that the Tory MP Caroline Noakes accused him of being sexually inappropriate, something he denies, and his ex-wife accused him of beating her so that her nose broke, something he's never publicly answered. I don't think a person of those accusations should be going through the vetting process.
Is that his fault, though, Benjamin? Is it Benjamin? And there's no proof to the other thing that you said there. Is it his fault, though, really?
Well, his ex-wife said so, of Tom Bauer, who often comes on this show.
No, I mean, is it his fault he's been nominated for a knighthood, not the other stuff?
Well, he's accepted it quite clearly. So I think he should know better than to be trying to get a knighthood. It is a complete nonsense. It shows just what a farce the Johnsons are.
OK, Belinda?
Well, mine is Matt Hancock. It had to be with the scare the pants off the public WhatsApp message, using fear to control the public rather than information and understanding. Unforgivable, really.
Well, good grief. I'll tell you what, you've all run a close one here, actually, I must say. I think I'm going to double Belinda. OK, I'm going to go Matt Hancock.
You can double me any time, Patrick.
OK, with the Union Jackass.
I meant with the Union Jackass. What were you thinking?
Yeah, OK, we'll go.
It's a nice Union Jackass, isn't it? Hancock, MP, while it lasts. There you go. Yes, these revelations keep on coming. Look, thank you very, very much. I would just like to say a great big thank you to my wonderful panel. We had Carol Malone, we had Benjamin Butterworth, we had Belinda de Lucy, and what an absolute treat this has been, sitting in for the irrepressible Dan Wootton. I'll be back again tomorrow. You're going to get another double dose of Patrick Christie's, you lucky or unlucky people, depending on whether or not you actually like me. 3 p.m. tomorrow for my usual show, and I'll be back in this very chair, if they'll still have me, tomorrow at 9 p.m. Take it easy.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time